Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. Caught me reading. I love to read at the table, dressed like this every day. That's a total lie. Honestly, I've always wanted to start a video off on that kind of jokey premise of like, oh, didn't see you there. I feel like that's been a thing that I've seen in. I've seen it somewhere. Welcome to this latest Out in the Open. The reason for my fancy appearance, this espresso, glass of water, the whole look, if you will. I have a thing later this afternoon. I'll just leave it at that. But it is important that I dress up for this thing. So I just figure, hey, I'm already dressed up. I might as well use this for the video as well, because what's the worst that somebody is going to tell me? That I look nice or that I'm dressed up? Like who cares? Doesn't really matter. Let me have some of this espresso before it gets cold. I actually tried to make this video yesterday, and truth be told, I think it actually was going really, really well, and I probably said some things in there that I don't think I'll be able to repeat in this one. But unfortunately, I had a technical issue, and I lost the footage. Or I shouldn't say I lost the footage, but I had gone through a lot, and a lot of the footage did get lost. There was some of it that was salvageable, but I was just like, you know what? I don't even want to try to have to recreate this right now. I was just upset by the situation, so I'm like, okay, you know what? Just scrap it. It's not meant to be. We'll go ahead and live to make this video another day, and so that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping this one is. Interesting little tidbit about this video, and then I swear to God that I'm going to get into everything. I'm shooting this right now with 60 frames per second in HD. I think my iPhone is actually capable of shooting in 4K, but I just figure, hey, I'm not really quite sure how this is going to turn out, so I can play around with this in these videos, because why not? This is my own pet project. I can do what I want with it. So I don't know. Tell me if this makes a difference to you whatsoever. The previous videos that I shot were in 30 frames per second in HD, so I don't know, all you videophile people or people that care about this out there, you just tell me and we'll go from there. What is the point of this Out in the Open? It is one subject which will touch on several things, I imagine, over the course of it. Books. Yes, books. I did start off with a jokey intro with a book, but I do actually read. I don't have every book that I've ever read in my lifetime, because as we all go through life, there's books that we read in elementary school and high school and college, etc. So there's books there that I don't have, but I've certainly read. I also don't always keep every book that I read. I do sometimes give them to people. I think that's actually a neat thing that you can do with a book, is rather than hold on to it yourself and let it just collect dust, is give it to somebody else that will actually have some enjoyment out of it, and then in a perfect world, they're passing it along or paying it forward to the next. At least that's what I like to think. Or I've just flat out just traded it in and probably bought movies with it. So that is something. But I just thought that it would maybe make for an interesting video to hear me talk about books. And then of course you can chime in and give your own thoughts on books, whether you read or don't read. I don't really know, but I just figured, hey, let's give this a shot. I've never really tried to talk about books before, so this could be interesting, or this could be a one-time deal that never happens again. We shall see. So, I have all my books stacked to the left of me, so in no particular order, I am going to go ahead and get into them. But I will start with, actually, the very first book, if you will, that I'm going to start with, and I just purely want to throw this in there. I don't have all of the examples of it at the ready, but I just figure it's a bit disingenuous and not totally truthful if I don't say that I read these types of things. But check this out. So this right here is the 4K Dazed and Confused Criterion Collection Edition. This was a gift by my older brother, thank you. And inside of it, I'll try to, this isn't like an unboxing, but you'll get my point. Inside of it is this little, I don't know if you want to call it like a mini book, a pamphlet. There's essays in here, handful of other things, but I am a physical media collector, particularly of movies, and anytime a movie does contain something like this, I do actually take the time to read these. And so while it's not technically speaking a book, it is still something that I actually do take the time to read and would strongly encourage other people to do the same if they're actually interested in reading outside of just purely books. There are other things that people can read, magazines, articles, etc., etc. I'm probably overthinking that, but had to give a shout out, I guess, just to Dazed and Confused. But thank you to physical media companies that actually still will go about putting those types of materials in your products. I really like it, and I think others do too. Let me go ahead and, in no particular order, I'm just going to start grabbing books, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on them. So, start off with this big one. It's a little bit of a cheat. Boom. Harry Potter. Harry Potter, the complete collection, or complete series. I'm not going to talk about each book within Harry Potter because I'm sure there's other potheads out there that have probably done a better job of that than me, but I'm just going to speak to my experience with the series. What can I say about Harry Potter that hasn't been said already? I love it. I grew up with these characters. I grew up with these books when they were coming out. I'm around the right age of the cast that famously portrayed them in the films. So these books are definitely very special to me, and it's just kind of one of those lightning in a bottle things where it's even more special to someone like myself because I was of the appropriate age and demographic and time to grow up with these characters. So I really think that makes a difference in reading them. Not that like when I have children myself, would I expose them to these books and have them read them or read it to them? I don't know if I could read 7 books to a kid, but maybe. Sure, I would absolutely do that, but I just don't think it would be the same experience. What I will say about these books, I love them all. If I had to pick favorites, let's see, I'm not going to think about this too much. Prisoner of Azkaban is usually one that I hear from a lot of the Harry Potter community that they like. I would say, though, me personally, that the 5th book has actually always been my favorite of the series. Not exactly sure why. I just think there's a lot of very interesting stuff that happens with some core characters. Some very tragic things that happen in that book, and it's very much like on the cusp of all the doom and gloom that follows in 6 and then 7. But anyways, I'm gonna have these books because like they're just great. I don't know if I'll ever reread them. Just as far as books go, that's always kind of a tall order for me because it's not like where you're watching a movie. It does take some time to reread these, even though I know these were written for younger folk. So perhaps it would be easier to do that. But anyways, I think it's worth keeping, worth having for the generations. And on one little small note, and then we'll move on, everybody knows the HBO series is coming, and I can't talk about Harry Potter without giving my quick thoughts on that. Good luck is probably the first thing that comes to mind. I understand why it's happening. There's things that are in the books that didn't make it into the films for obvious reasons, for storytelling purposes. So I get it. There's probably still room to mine to get out of Harry Potter, but I just think it's going to be a tall order. It's going to be tough because the movies are arguably near perfect for a lot of the fan base and broad. What am I trying to say? A lot of people really like these movies, so it's just going to be tough because they're going to inevitably, this show is going to inevitably be compared to this. So best of luck for everybody involved on that. I really hope it is distinct enough on its own and doesn't have a lot of comparison with it. And I hope it's also being done for the right reasons and not just purely for the sake of its well-known IP and we can just make a shitload of money off this and go from there. But anyways, moving on. Next up, we have, by Jocko Willink, Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual. I can't do a good Jocko impression. I don't think you'd want to hear me say that, but I'll set the book right there because I think you can see it in the frame. For those that may not be familiar with Jocko, he is an ex-Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL. Not sure what his rank was in the SEALs, but he was a SEAL, and believe me, if you look at him, there's no mistaking that he probably was born for military service because the guy just looks like he could kill you. all jokes aside, I actually think that he has some very interesting insights. I actually like a lot of his philosophies that he has on the subject of discipline, which is how I found this book. Though I will say, I think I was exposed to him originally because I found him on this fun GQ series that I think they used to do it, because I don't see it happen really much anymore, of people in specified fields talking about scenes from movies that are related to life experience that they've had. They had Jocko on for some military stuff, so I think that's how I got exposed to him, and then I just went down the rabbit hole. But as far as this book goes, well, it's not, I would not say it's formatted or particularly like a lot of other different books out there. So you can see here that the typeface and the images and the formatting, it's just very much not like a traditional book. But that being said, I actually really did enjoy this book, and there's a reason I've kept it, because if you're in the fitness, there's actually quite a bit of very specific and deliberate physical routines that he gives you that you can do. But I think more than that, there's actually just some pretty good, I don't want to say common sense, but there is just some very good direct wisdom that is in this book that it doesn't hurt to go back into and give yourself a reminder about some of these, especially if you're slipping, because really everything in this book ties back to that word discipline, which that's a subject I could probably talk about at great length in other stuff, but just not in this video. But anyways, I own that book. It's also a nice hardcover book, and it's I don't know why I just rubbed it like that, but whatever. All right, this next one here is particularly special for me for a number of reasons. This is Terry Goodkind's Stone of Tears. It is the second book in the Sword of Truth series. Is that what you call it? I'm not sure how many books are in this series. I want to say there's like 14 or 16. I'm sure anybody that's of the fan base on this could correct me on that. But this is the second book in the series. And what I will say that is special about this book in front of me, and then I'll give just some backstory to it. This is a first edition, and it is also autographed by the author, who is sadly passed away. And I promise I'm not like of the type that's like, ooh, good, they're gone, so now I'm going to sell this book and try to make a lot of money. No. I would not do that, because this book just actually has a lot of personal significance for me. I discovered the series in high school. It was introduced to me by my older brother, and I don't know. I really found this to be a riveting read. I actually have read this book twice, and it is my favorite of the series. And it's also the first book that I ever actually, I wasn't doing it purposefully, but I was at a bookshop, and just for shits and gigs, I went into their rare books section and I started looking, and I'm like, what are the odds of actually seeing this book here? It's autographed by the person. To me, it was a fair price. I'm not a rare books collector, but I was like, you know what, this is like something that would be so great to have and just keep and really treasure. And so that is the reason why I have it. I would say if you're not familiar with the series, you should definitely check it out if you like fantasy books. I don't know how it ends, so maybe it doesn't end so well. I can't really tell you that. I can tell you this, they did make a series. I don't remember which network produced it. I didn't think it was very good, to tell you the truth, and it's a shame because the author was directly involved with the series. I think it's just called Sword of Truth. You can find it out there. I think it actually made it to 2 seasons, and it's lucky it did that. But I don't even know what to think about that too, because truth is, with the author being so directly involved in that series, it's like, well, what if that was his real vision of the story and you just don't like the real vision and you liked what was in your head better? I don't know. I'm sure it's not the first time that happens with adaptations to a series. But anyways, I digress. Stone of Tears, it's great. I should mention on this, and then I'm going to keep it rolling. You'll notice that on a lot of these books that I'm going to show you that I don't have the actual sleeve cases to it. That is by order of my wife. We display these books around the house. She thinks it looks better and more classy if they don't have them. I was a little like, about that because that's probably just the physical media person in me because I love having slipcovers and protecting the quality of the material. But she says they look better when they're displayed without the sleeves over them, and she's more than likely correct because, most of the time wives are correct about stuff. But there is that. Take a sip of my water. I'm also going to go around real quick and just check to make sure that this is still recording because, like I said, I lost a lot of really good footage yesterday, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let that happen again for this. So hang on. Okay, let's keep going with the books. Next up here, we have The Book of Sheen by Charlie Sheen, which I just realized displaying it like this, like I don't have the sleeve for it, so you're just looking at a black book, so I'll just hold it. One thing you'll see that's pretty apparent as we go over this video is you'll see I like to read memoirs or books about or written by, I don't want to say always famous people, but I mean, let's call it what it is. It's people that are in the arts and the entertainment industry and film, people that I just find interesting. I really like to read their books and I like to read about their lives. This was a gift given to me by my older brother. Thank you. The same person, actually, that gave me that copy that I showed you of Dazed and Confused earlier. Actually, did both those gifts come? Both those gifts might have been presented to me at the same time. I'm not sure. Now, here's what I'll say about the Book of Sheen. It is not my favorite memoir that I have read from a celebrity. I think if you are at all interested in the life of Charlie Sheen, there's definitely some things that he talks about that will intrigue you and you'll be glad that he touched on it. He definitely talks about a lot of the highs and lows of his life, talks about his movie career, particularly the highs of it, though he does address some of his low periods, but good stuff in there about him being a kid on the set of Apocalypse Now. How crazy would that be to to just be a fly on the wall on that film set? Talks about his days in the movie Platoon and Wall Street, briefly touches on some of his other parts that I would say he's known for, like Major League and Ferris Bueller's Day Off and things like that. The reason, though, why I think that I was a little underwhelmed by the book is I don't know what this says about me, but I wanted him to actually go more into the dark period of his life and be more candid about his thoughts on that and sort of what he's been doing with his life since then. He does talk about a lot of the dark days on there, so it's not like he doesn't touch on it at all. Like, he definitely talks about drugs, talks about hookers and porn stars that he was with and a lot of nefarious things that I'm sure people have strong opinions about. But I was hoping he'd go more into depth on it, and I just don't think he quite did. And especially like in the years after he survived all this, I just kind of wanted to know more about like what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your day to day? Probably just raising his kids, I guess, and I don't know what else he's doing because he didn't really talk about it that much. So it's not a bad book by any stretch of the imagination. I think, again, if you're a fan of Charlie Sheen, you're probably going to want to read this book. I've heard that there's also a documentary that Netflix made. I think they released it simultaneously around like when the book came out, so perhaps that maybe sheds different light on this. But in any case, this is a good book. I'm glad I read it. I don't know when I'll be revisiting this, if ever, so I would not be surprised if this is just a book that I lend or give to somebody that also has an interest in Charlie Sheen. Okay, let's keep the celebrity memoirs going, and we'll talk about this one right here that the slip cover is on, and that is Michael Richards' Entrances and Exits with a foreword by his pal Jerry Seinfeld. Okay, I actually have more thoughts on this book than some of the other ones, so I'll try to be brief on this. I got this as a gift from another friend of mine. It was a Christmas present, I believe, and very glad I got it because I was going to get it on my own anyway. Michael Richards, for those that may not be familiar, he most famously is known for his character of Cosmos Kramer on the hit series Seinfeld, ran for a number of years. You may have heard of it. Famously, or I should say infamously, his career took a nosedive and pretty much never recovered after a very, very bad incident that happened with him at, I believe it was the Laugh Factory, which is a place for stand-up comedians, and the rest is history. I don't need to go into that. You can look it up yourself or read this book because he does talk about it. I really wanted to read this book for a number of reasons. I mean, one, Seinfeld is one of my all-time favorite shows, so I was hoping he would talk about Seinfeld in it. He absolutely does. It's what the world knows him for. But more than that, it talks about him, like, as a person. I really gained a lot more insight into just who he is creatively. And eccentric is probably the first word that comes to mind when I read about him, because he even talks, like, when he's preparing and getting in the mindset of the character Kramer. He took it very seriously. I think people would be surprised to realize he wasn't just goofing off a bunch and just being silly and doing all this stuff. Like, he was very methodical and specific about some of the choices that he made playing that character, and it definitely influenced a ton of his life, changed his life. So it's unsurprising that he talks about that character as much as he does in the book. But I think beyond that, the real reason I wanted to read this book is because I wanted to hear what he said about that incident that I'm talking about that ended his career, professionally at least. He does talk about it. I don't think it's probably going to be anything that you... Like, there's nothing he says about it, I guess, that you wouldn't be like, oh, well, like, yeah, that makes sense, or you'd be surprised by, or like, man, that's like a real revelation that he said about the incident. I have to put myself in his shoes and imagine that, he lived through all that, and you can say what you will about it. Maybe you never forgave him. I'm not really sure, but I think in his worldview, I think he made amends. I think he stepped back from the spotlight. I think I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like he did about as much as any person could do that did something like that and met the repercussions of it. And I think that's why it was interesting for me for wanting to read this book, because that subject in general I find very, very fascinating. This idea of cancel culture and what happens to a person after they are quote unquote canceled. Now, this happened well before that stuff started becoming a buzzword, that cancel word and whatnot. He, I think, even uses the terminology that he canceled himself by doing what he did. And but even so, like, beyond that, I just find the subject fascinating, because it's like, what does a person do with their life after it? Like I don't know if you can ever come back to be at the level of fame that you're at. There's going to be people that will tell me that there's exceptions to the rule. You have your Robert Downey Jr.'s in the world. I'm sure there's probably another list of people I could say, famous people that have been able to recover from really bad life choices or actions, decisions, things that happen. But it's just interesting, because it's like, okay, this happened so long ago, the incident that destroyed him, and it's like, is he not supposed to be able to have a life after the fact? Like, what is he supposed to do? And like, if he's not supposed to, return to stardom and be famous and do all that different stuff, like, what is he supposed to do? And that's always the thing I think that's interesting with this subject, because, well, one, if you're famous like him, money is probably not going to be an issue, because I don't know how this all works, but I'm pretty sure he still is making money from Seinfeld. He probably gets some sort of a royalty or something from it, or hell, him writing this book, he can probably make some money off of that. But so in that sense, I think he's probably fine. But then I just think about people that maybe aren't famous that do something like him, and it just puts a complete dent in their life's path. It's like, what do you do? Like, are you entitled to having a life after that? Should you have a life? Like, should you just go to prison? Like what should be happening? on this. And I'm not saying I have the answer on any of the questions that I'm asking. I do think it's always case by case, and there's situational stuff to it. There's a lot of context around it. Sometimes it is just a matter of it's like, no, like you messed up real bad and you can't ever come back from it. I don't know. Perhaps if he ever wanted to try to make a real comeback, people would let him do it. Or maybe not, and he's probably fine where he's at in life. He seems to be fine from what I can tell from reading this book. But anyways, it's an interesting read. If you're interested in any of the stuff that I just said, I think this one is definitely worth checking out. And yeah, I don't know. Michael Richards, interesting guy. One thing I'll say that I found very interesting about him just as a person, I don't remember which part in the book he says this, but he at one point says that one thing that he likes to do is he would like to take a scuba tank, like get himself all geared up with scuba diving, and he would just go to the bottom of his pool and just sit there breathing his oxygen tank. And I don't know if he's meditating or just being with the vibe of being underwater and breathing, but he would do that. And he said that he would much rather do something like that than basically go to a party with a ton of, socialite Hollywood types and things like that. He'd rather just chill in the bottom of his pool. I don't know. That's interesting. All right, that's that. Okay. I'm kind of cheating with this next one here, but bear with me. This is one of my journals. This is a personalized journal that my wife gave me a couple years back. I shouldn't say, actually, a couple years back. This is from 2025. It says it right there. I don't know. I really wanted to share this because I don't know if there would ever be a time that I would go back and read my writing that I've done before on journals. Perhaps one day I will have enough of this written up that it would make sense to compile it and make a book out of it. I don't know. Would you read that? Would I want to read that? I'm not sure. But anyways, it is a hardcover. I like that she took the trouble to have it, say, written and directed by me, because movies are really at the core of who I am, and they just make up such a big part of my identity. So, great that she did that. And also, note to self, Jordan, there's still pages in this that you gotta fill out. So, I need to write more. Okay, this next one. This is the Odyssey. The Odyssey. I don't know why my voice cracked like that, but this is the Odyssey by Homer. Now, this is where Jordan's, I don't know why I referred to myself in the third person. This is where my book knowledge is gonna look a little not so great. Take some water. You remember how I said that a lot of books I have, they're gonna be about people in the limelight, people that are interesting. I do like to read a lot of memoirs. Well, something else you should know about me is that I also sometimes will read books because I know a movie is going to be developed about it, or it's going to come out, or it somehow ties to movies. The Odyssey is just that. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. It's coming out this July. I never read The Odyssey. I did read the Iliad, I believe, which is also by Homer. I think that was in high school. That, depicts the movie Troy. The movie Troy is loosely based off that. I'm sure there's people out there that said that is not historically accurate to what happens in the movie Troy, but who cares? You got Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, Orlando Bloom, and many others in their prime in a Wolfgang Peterson epic. So I think the movie more than makes up for anything that it doesn't do with the book. But the Odyssey, I bought this because, like I said, the Christopher Nolan movie's coming out, and I'm excited for it, and I felt like, hey, I got enough time before July gets here to read it, though I am only on page 54, so I still got some room to do, or I still have some book to read on this, so I will have to get there. What I can say about this edition, it's very pretty. I think this is just a very nicely designed book. Definitely looks great on a shelf, so there's definite shelf appeal with it. What I can tell you about the book, and like I said, I'm not done reading it, but I can give you some quick thoughts. It's actually more accessible than I thought. I was a little afraid that this was going to be like like a very old like Shakespeare book or Hamlet or something with like very old style text where my moronic 2026 brain would not be able to really take it all in with intelligence, because I don't really read that type of stuff. But thankfully it's not quite like that. I don't know if there's other translations of this, or maybe it's written in different styles, because this is, after all, like a book that is quite old, so I'm sure there's different versions of this. But it's surprisingly accessible. I'm enjoying it so far. I can see why Christopher Nolan would want to adapt it into a movie, and I'm excited to get to more of the fantastical elements of it. Okay, sorry, I'm having a hell of a time here with technology today. This is literally like the 4th time I have attempted to finish this video because I kept running out of storage and I thought I had deleted stuff and I didn't. I think it's fine now, and I'm going to tell you what right now. I swear, this is to you and to everybody and myself. If it doesn't work, the rest of this recording doesn't work, whatever, you're gonna get what I'm able to give you on this, and then the rest is just gonna be done. Yes, this is real frustration. I'm not editing this out because this is just the truth, and if I can't be out in the open with the reality of stuff like this happening, then what am I doing with this channel? Okay, so the rest of this video is probably not going to be how I envisioned it, because I do have stuff to do, and I'm on a little bit of a time crunch right now, but I'm dressed up, damn it, and I'm not gonna let the rest of this go by. So, might seem a little condensed as far as all my thoughts go on the rest of these books, but it is what it is. Life is not always perfect. Okay, the Odyssey. I was trying to finish thoughts on that. The movie's coming out soon. I'm going to finish reading it. I will see the movie, absolutely, hopefully in IMAX, and this is a very pretty edition of the book, so nice to have on the shelf. Okay, Meditations. Marcus Aurelius. Here we go. All right, staying. Here's what I can say about this book. I first learned about it because Jerry Seinfeld was on the GQ Things I Can't Live Without video a while ago. He mentioned this book. And I've heard it mentioned before, and that was sort of the inspiration that I was like, hey, if I ever come across it, I'm going to get this book, I'm going to read it. It's an enjoyable book. I'm not done with it so far. It is, I'm like page 53 of nearly 200. Here's what I'll say about the book. There's definitely some wisdom in the book. I think there's things in it that it's just incredible how relevant it is still to this day, considering how long ago this book was written. Something about that, something that kind of gives me peace almost in a way, like just knowing that certain things will never change, or certain problems always exist in the world, and how we look at them is, it evolves over time, but there's just, I don't know, there's some sort of a commonality with that that's very interesting to me. As far as how best to read this book, this feels a lot like how you're supposed to read the Bible, I'm told. I read the Bible when I was growing up, but I have yet to actually go back and dive back into that text with great detail. But I digress. But it seems like reading the Bible a little bit, because these are collected journalings or musings from Marcus Aurelius, so it's not told from like a, traditional, Act 1, 2, 3 structure. So I think you're meant to read this book in chunks and, really take the words, reflect on them, talk about them with other people, maybe take a highlighter, go back through, see what you think, and go from there. For myself, hopefully I can take some of the wisdom that's in this book, apply it to my own life, or maybe use it to sound intelligent or interesting at a social gathering and see where that takes me. So, there. Thoughts on meditation. Greenlights. All right. That's a really bad Matthew McConaughey impression. This is his memoir. This is a first edition. Very cool thing about this is I have an autographed version of this book from Matthew McConaughey. Have I met him? No. Would I like to meet him? Abso-frickin-lutely. I would have a lot of questions for him, and there's a lot that I can say about him. I tried to say it in like the last 3 times I've tried to record this video, so I'm not going to get all my thoughts on it, but I will try. Matthew McConaughey as a person, I actually think I look up to him. I didn't realize that up until recently when I was talking about him and his story to my wife. I followed his career very closely since Dazed and Confused. I just realized, started the video talking about Dazed and Confused, and I swear to God I wasn't trying to make some type of connection there. That just happened. But yeah, so I'm a really big fan of him. I like what he does in his life. I think his career trajectory has been very interesting. I think his Oscar speech when he won for Best Actor for Dallas Buyers Club, was it 2013, 2014? The McConaughey during that time. One of the greatest speeches, honestly, in the history of the Academy, and I also think it's just incredibly inspiring to me, and it did inspire me at the time and still does to this day. But what I can tell you about the book, it's a very good book. It's entertaining. It's very much in his manner of speaking, his personality. You can really feel him through the writing, and that's a big praise that I would give it. I need to revisit this book. I read it when it first came out, but I do need to revisit it, and I think if I did, I would probably get the audiobook version because it's him narrating it, and if you've heard him talk, he has a very distinct manner of how he speaks. So I think it would be a really entertaining listen to do that. And I do say listen on that. This just real quick, I want to get this thought out, and then I'm going to move on. I don't know if it's just me that gets annoyed by this, but has anybody ever talked to somebody and like they say they're like, oh yeah, like I read a lot, like I read like 5 books a month, and then you find out that they're not actually reading, but they're listening to the audiobooks. Now look, I think it's totally fine how you want to consume stuff. Audiobook, reading it, whatever. Want to watch the movie, I don't care. But to be a little bit of a purist, it's like, can you actually say that you read a book if you listen to it? I don't know. If it's me, no. I think just tell the truth. You listen to it. It doesn't make it any less. Like, I'm not better for having read it versus listening to it. But it's like, just tell the truth. Come on. Like, what are you doing? Like, don't say that. Reading is not listening, and listening is not reading. There. Okay. Yeah, I'll just move on from Greenlights. Let's keep going. I'm gonna check the recording now. Oh my God. Let's see if it's working. Okay, I think I can actually make it through the rest of this, and hopefully some of the frustration will leave, and I'll be a little more pleasant through the rest of this video. Okay, Be Useful, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is his memoir. I'm not going to give you a bad Arnold Schwarzenegger impression because there's enough of them out there, and you really don't want to hear me do it. I would botch it. I'm a fan of Arnold. I mean, a lot of people are, I think, whether it's from his days of Mr. Universe. He's the Terminator. He's an actor. He's been the governor of California. He's been a philanthropist in his own way. Has done a lot. And I just think, I mean, the guy's lived multiple lifetimes in one lifetime. If even one person was able to be any of those things I just said, like Mr. Universe, the actor, the governor, etc., that would be enough. But the fact that he has been able to do it all in his life, and he's still going, still doing stuff, I think it's pretty incredible. Now, as far as a memoir goes, this is fine. This is a fine memoir. As the title says, it says be useful. There's things that he says in here that I think are universally true, but I will say I think it's a little more generalized sometimes than what I would wish. It makes sense for him, for his story, because he had very specific visions in mind for himself of becoming like the greatest bodybuilder ever and becoming an actor and governor. That's all fine and good, but I don't know if everything that he is talking about in Be Useful is going to, not trying to be funny on this, but be useful for everybody. But I admire that he went about the memoir route from that standpoint and direction of sharing life advice and wisdom that he's acquired throughout his life to people. It's a cool way of doing it. I don't think everything lands as much as I would like for it to in the book, but this is a cool book, and it looks nice. I'm going to sound stupid on this. I don't know what this part of a book is called. Holy crap. What is this called? What is this called? This shows you how little I actually talk about books on camera. All right, let's keep going. This is Matthew Perry's memoir, the late great Matthew Perry, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. This is a first edition, actually, because I know I pre-ordered this book before it came out. It's not autographed by him. That would have been really nice or cool had it been. There's a lot that I can say about this book. I can tell you I think it's one of the best memoirs of a famous person I think I've read, because it is really unflinchingly honest, as far as I can tell. I mean, I never met the guy, but there are things and moments that he shares in this book that it's rare to find that kind of honesty in published works, let alone from somebody that's famous. And I always really, really admire people that are so candidly truthful about things in their life, especially the things they don't want to talk about, the things that are embarrassing or show how flawed you are and human and things like that. And he certainly does that. I can tell you that if you don't know anybody that has addiction issues, or you just have no frame of reference for any of it, you've never researched it, having this all told from his point of view, not that it's just all about his addiction. I mean, like, he talks about his career and other stuff in the book, but certainly addiction is at the core of the book. And it all being from an addict's point of view, I think is fascinating. It's sad. It's tragic. I think if you read this book and you don't look at somebody suffering through addiction, whether that be alcohol, it be drugs, sex, food, there's all kinds of addictions that are out there. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you don't have any empathy after reading something like that for those people dealing with that, I'm not sure I want to know you. So that might be a little harsh, but I think that's kind of true. I would highly recommend this book to people. If you're interested in the show Friends, you're interested in him, you're interested in the subject of addiction, well, you're going to get a little bit of everything with that book and then some. Hell of a read. I think it's sad that he's passed away, of course. I'm not going to get into all that stuff. Plenty of thoughts I do have on the subject, but I think it's just a blessing that he was able to get this book out, tour it properly. I know he gave a number of like panels and speeches and things about the book. It's a real blessing, I think. I'm sure, almost certain that it has helped people. Somebody of his fame putting out something so truthful and honest like that. Sad that he's not here with us now, but I just hope he's in a better place. I believe he is, and I'm grateful that he was able to get that book out. So there you go. I got 4 more books left, and we're gonna hope that the rest of this recording works. Heat 2, Michael Mann, Meg Gardiner, if I'm saying her name right. If you really want to know my thoughts on Heat 2, I'm gonna have to ask you all to do some homework. When I had my podcast Screen Speak, I actually did a whole episode around the movie Heat, and I incorporated the book Heat 2 into it. Holy crap, hang on. Sorry. Heat 2. If you want to know all my complete thoughts on the book, go find that episode, listen to it. I talk about it and then some. What I will say about this, if you're a fan of Heat 1, I think you'll absolutely like the book Heat 2. It is not just a direct sequel to that story. It is also a prequel. It's told in a very interesting way. Ambitious as hell, I have to say, for a story. And I'm saying should because, I don't know, productions can fall through for a lot of reasons. Heat 2 is supposed to be happening. I think it actually is supposed to be shooting this year with Michael Mann involved and a freaking A-plus stacked cast of Leo DiCaprio and Christian Bale and a whole bunch of other very famous people. I hope it happens, but if you've read this book, I hope they got the budget and the time, because there is a lot to cram into a movie. And I mean, I got faith in Mann, I do. But it's like Heat is just an absolute classic of a film. I think Heat 2 is great, and man, I'll tell you what, if they pull it off as a movie, we are gonna be we're going to be in for a treat. Or it's going to be one of the worst things that's ever happened. But hey, isn't that the thing with any movie that comes out? It could be good, it could be awful, who knows? All right, I'm going to spin around the camera one last time, check that the recording's okay, and then we're going to finish this with a bang, and I'm going to get going because I am dressed up for a reason, and I don't want to be late. This next book is going to take me a little bit to unpack, but I promise it's worth it. So this is Werner Herzog. I think I'm saying his name correctly. This is his memoir, Every Man for Himself and God Against All. Now, I don't know if this is a first edition, but what I can tell you is it is autographed by the man himself. I got to watch him autograph it, and even better yet, I got to actually meet him and sit across from him and both have beers together. That was very, very cool. Gotta say, it's probably gonna be one of those highlights in my life that if I have children that actually care about my interest in any of this stuff, I will tell them the Werner Herzog story, because I have a feeling it's probably not going to happen again where I'm going to get to sit across from the man and have a drink with him. But I got to tell that story now, right? I have to do it. So before I do tell that story, though, just real quick, my own background on Werner Herzog himself. I'll be honest, before reading this memoir and this whole story happened, I was familiar with him because I know that he did Fitzcarraldo. He was a very notable foreign film director, I guess. I want to say he's German. I read his memoir. I should probably know where he's from. But anyways, he has a very storied career as a filmmaker, documentarian, has a lot of very famous documentaries, and has also done acting work himself. I know most recently, in recent years, he was in The Mandalorian, I think the first season. He's popped up in like The Simpsons. He was in one of those Jack Reacher movies. He's been in a lot of mainstream stuff and obscure things over time. And I know actually one of the obscure things, now that I'm thinking about it, is he has I don't know if he's credited for it or not, but he has a very strange cameo in the Robin Williams movie, What Dreams May Come. I think he is the role of actually his dad that Robin Williams steps on his face when he's going through hell. You'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. But anyways, a very, very interesting fellow. Now, as far as the book itself goes, that's the thing I found that's probably the most intriguing thing about this, is he has this way of writing where I'm certain that the man's very smart and that he has an incredible life and many stories within it that are worth sharing, and clearly there's some in this book. But he does, to me at least, write it in a way where it's like, I can't quite tell how much of this is just him telling facts about his life versus like just him giving his musings and his personal takes and just musings on things. Like it seems kind of a mix of both. But he does have a very distinctive way of talking. I did get to see him actually read part of this book on stage when he was promoting the book, so that was definitely a treat. I would say though, like if you have absolutely no idea who this person is and you were to just jump in and read his book, that's probably not the move. Maybe watch a few of his movies before. I can say before I even knew of him to this extent, I had seen his movie Rescue Dawn with Christian Bale, very much like that movie actually. And I know he did the remake of Bad Lieutenant with Nicolas Cage, and I think I saw his Grizzly Man documentary. I'm pretty sure, the one with the bear. But anyways, don't read this book if you have no idea who this is. It would not matter. But now let me spill the beans on my story about meeting him, because it's cool, I think. So I met him during the time of my Screen Speak podcast, and at this time in the podcast life, I was trying to get it to be more involved and integrated into film festivals. And one of the film festivals that I was able to get into as part of my podcast was the Refocus Film Festival, which is held out of Iowa City. And I believe they are put together by Film Scene, which is an art house theater that's down there. So if you're ever in Iowa City, want to check them out, I would definitely recommend it. They show some very interesting films, and if you are I think, more leaning towards the intellectual side of films and how you like to get about discussing them, or you kind of lean towards academia, they're going to be right up your alley. That's not always for me, but that's for a different video to talk about that stuff. But at the time, I was very grateful to be able to attend the Refocus Film Festival and have the VIP access pass that I had that allowed me to get to be in a situation that allowed me to meet Werner. So this is how it went. At some point in the festival, there was a VIP access-only party type deal. You had to have a certain level of pass to be able to get into it. I had that level of pass, courtesy of Film Scene, so I was very grateful for that, and I still am. And so anyways, I went to this party, and there was like a buffet there, and food, and booze, and all this stuff, and I was getting some food in line, and I happened to be right by Werner, who was loading up on some meatballs, and I think some other stuff. And I did like one of those double takes where I'm like, I think that's him, right? Like that's Werner Herzog, right? That's like the guy. And the head of Film Scene, he was there, and I went up to him, and I'm like, hey, like, is that him? And he confirmed. He's like, yep, that's him. And I did like one of those, it's probably like amateurish thing or things that people that aren't used to being around somebody famous do, where I was like I'd really love to go up to him and say something, but I don't know if this is the right setting to do that. If he just wants to eat his meatballs and be left alone, I will happily do that. I don't want to be annoying to him. But anyways, the guy for Film Scene, he told me, he's like, he's like, this is a safe space to do that. He might enjoy it. Go ahead, give it a shot. So I was like, okay. So I found my window to do it. After he had his meatballs, he went over to a table and he had a beer, and he was sitting with, I believe, somebody that he brought with him to help promote this book. They were having a conversation, and there was a couple of chairs that were at the table that were free, and I'm like, the hell with it. I'm going to go over and just see if they'll just let me, this random guy, go sit there with them, and we'll see what happens. And thankfully he reciprocated. I just went to the table. I'm like, hey, like, can I just pop a squat here? Can I sit down? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. I introduced myself. Of course I pretended like I wasn't familiar with him, because I'm like, that's probably not something that you should do big. Oh my God, I'm such a fan. So I didn't do that, but yeah, I got to shake his hand. He introduced himself. He was very polite. And then I sat down, and then before I knew it, the rest of the spots at the table were also filled. And then there I was, just sitting almost like a fly on the wall, having a beer across from Werner Herzog while he's just talking with this good friend of his. And that was fascinating. I mean, it was a really fascinating experience. I think I was there with him for probably like a good half hour, maybe longer. I don't remember everything that he talked about, but that doesn't really matter. I think just getting to be in his presence and just get to hear and see him just, in a non-press setting or anything like that, I just thought it was really cool. I kind of regret that I didn't try to like participate in the conversation, but I think I just was like, hey, know your place. He's having a good conversation with somebody he knows, so just leave it at that. I will say, though, the last thing about this story that was also very cool is somebody else that was at the festival that also was famous in their own right was the author of the Cider House Rules, which I believe he wrote the screenplay for the film, and he won an Oscar for his writing on that movie. He was at the festival as well, doing a promotion of Cider House Rules, because they did a screening of it there. And so I got to meet him as well, because he ended up showing up and pulled up a chair and sat with Werner. And I believe the two of them actually just talked about wrestling a lot. They talked about Dan Gable, I think, which, if you know anything about wrestling, that name will ring a bell. And also its relationship to Iowa. I think there's something there. I don't really know what I'm talking about on that subject, but I just know that that's what they were talking about. And that was just one of those moments where I just really kind of stepped outside of myself, and I'm like, not like starstruck, like, oh, pinch me, like, this is so great, but I'm just like, Jordan, take this in. You got this podcast and this project and yourself to a place where you're able to sit across from two people that you admire in very different respects and just get to be in their company and enjoy time spent with them. Like, how amazing is that? It was cool. It was definitely one of the neatest experiences in my life. I hope I have others down the road that could be like that. But yeah, just very, very cool. And so, yeah, I got to then later listen to him give a talk about this book. He signed my copy, and the rest is history. So very, very cool. Yeah, very, very cool. Okay, these last two books I should be able to blow through fast, and then we're done. Marc Maron, Attempting Normal. This is a fun book. I think he's wrote other books before, so I don't think this is his first one. If you're unfamiliar with Marc Maron, he famously, for one of the longest running podcasts in history, one of the original GOATs, one of the original founding fathers, if you will, of podcasting is Marc Maron, at least for popularizing it. He did the WTF podcast. You can still listen to all of that on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a fan of his comedy. I'm a fan of his writing. I like how he sees the world. I'm trying to think what more I could say about it. I just like him. I think he has a very interesting way of looking at things. Sometimes it's funny because he does do comedy, but I also find a lot of his musings on things to be thought-provoking and thought-provoking. I liked his series, by the way, too, Maron. I would recommend watching that. I think you could still see it on the Independent Film Channel. I think that's who released it. And last thing I'll say about that is I did not get to meet him, but I have seen him live before. He came to the Englert Theater in Iowa City at one point, and I got to see him. And that was really cool. I actually would really like to be able to see more stand-up in my life. And I like the art form of it a lot. And this is a cool book. And neat cover art. All right. The last book that Jordan owns and is going to talk about on camera before he skedaddles and gets on with his life. Cloud Atlas. Cloud Atlas. Let's see. There's a movie. That is how I got familiar with this book. I definitely saw the movie first. Really great movie. Like, if you've never seen Cloud Atlas, not only should you watch it, but watch it all in one sitting because, that's just how movies are meant to be watched. Don't watch it like in 20-minute increments or on a phone. That's not the best way to watch this. Great film. Really, really, truly like the movie. And the book itself is also, I think, holds up very well if you're comparing it to the movie. Now, what I will say about this book is that it's a challenging read in some respects, just because the writing style, it just shifts based off the different stories that are in this book. But I just find all the interconnectedness of this story just so completely fascinating. The idea of playing around with like reincarnation and us having past lives and how our actions have reactions to things in the future. These are themes that have been explored, I'm sure, in several other stories, but I've never seen it quite done in this particular way. If I ever met this author, I would love to pick his brain and be like, how in the hell does your brain work to get you to come up with all this and actually make it be cohesive and really just, this is a real thought-provoking book. I really, really like it. It's very entertaining. I love the movie, like I said, and should probably actually read that again. All right. Got to do a stretch. Thank you for making it through this video, assuming that you did. What books do you like to read? Do you like to read books? Do you not? Do you just look at them and see them on a shelf and be like, ooh, that person's smart, they read a lot? Or, whatever. Just, I'd like to know your thoughts on books. Perhaps I will revisit the subject in another video that I'm not having a bunch of technical issues on because I don't know how fast storage fills up on a phone, or maybe I'll get a proper camera again and film it on that. I don't know. In any case, really do appreciate everybody giving this video a watch or a listen. Would love to know your thoughts, and until next time, you all take care. Be yourselves, be out in the open, and we'll go from there. Okay. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you later, and I probably won't be dressed up like this the next time. Okay, bye.